This is Gahanna Middle School and Unit 5. Did I pronounce it right, Gahanna or Gahanna?
It's Gahanna.
Gahanna. Okay, thank you for that. I'll get it right tomorrow then. All right.
No worries.
Want to thank you for coming out today and taking your Saturday and then part of your Sunday tomorrow to join us for this. My name is Mark McCall. I am your facilitator for this session and also be your timekeeper. The judges will introduce themselves in just a moment, and then we'll ask you to introduce yourselves. As we go through, just as a quick reminder, your timing is 4 minutes on your prepared presentation, 8 minutes of questions from follow-up from the judges, and then they will provide you some feedback when we're done. And to help out with the timings, just to help with the screens there, I want to let you know that I'll do a virtual background. When we go to 1 minute left, you'll have the green screen, and then at the end of your 4 minutes and 8 minutes, I'll switch to yellow just so everyone can see that. All right. And with that, I will mute myself and turn it over to the judges.
Hello, everybody. Congratulations and welcome for being here at this competition. Congratulations. There's lots of work to get you here already. And thanks to your teacher as well. My name is Candida Steele, and I'm retired as a judge on the U.S. Civilian Board of Contract Appeals. I handled federal government contract disputes around the country. And I've been with the program for about 20 years. And my colleagues are Rebecca.
Good afternoon and congratulations to you and your teacher. My name is Rebecca Tinder. I'm a retired attorney from Charleston, West Virginia, and the West Virginia We the People coordinator.
My name is Lindsay Draper. I'm retired from the juvenile court bench here in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. And like my two colleagues, I am thrilled that you are participating in this. I am excited to hear what you have to say. And I want to be sure that you know before you say anything further or else or anything at all, we're just proud of you because this has not been an easy year. That you're doing this makes us happy. And when next week comes, and next week being Teacher Appreciation Week, please be sure that your teacher knows how much you realize we're proud of you because he helped put a lot of work into this.
Great. Can you tell us who you all are?
Hello, I'm the Nancy at the Mata.
I'm Isaiah Silla.
I'm Emma Stark.
Okay. And I'll go ahead and tell you, and your teacher we see is up there. Hi, welcome. Congratulations. I'll read you the question. We're going to do number 1 in Unit 5. And quote, when a choice must be made, it is better to allow those who preach racial hate rather than to be panicked into embarking on the dangerous course of permitting the government to decide what its citizens may say and hear. Do you agree or disagree with Judge Bernard Decker's upholding the rights of Nazis to march in Skokie, Illinois? Why? What limits has the Supreme Court placed on freedom of expression? What benefit, if any, is there from the presentation of ideas that are designed to alarm, antagonize, and offend members of society? And what limits on freedom of expression, if any, should be placed on social media sites? You may begin.
Before you begin, can we have the teacher eliminate his video?
Great, thank you. So you may begin.
Freedom of expression is not absolute. Restricting freedom of expression is dangerous because once moderated, the question of who regulates how far the limiting can go and when it can be stopped can be brought up. While freedom of expression allows for communication, there are times when it
You're frozen. If you can hear us, you need to stop and begin again. Mark? We'll start over.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's
I just have to begin.
Yes.
Okay. Freedom of expression is not absolute. Restricting freedom of expression is dangerous because once moderated, the question of who regulates how far limiting can go and when it can be stopped there are times when it can be considered offensive or contradicting someone else's right. In such a case, when and where the expression was shown must be considered, and from there, it can be decided whether or not to be limited. Freedom of expression is a fundamental law. However, there are times when it should be limited. According to Schenck versus the U.S., when a nation is at war, things that might be said during time of peace will not be endured or protected. The nation's security is at a risk of breach during war. Similarly, Cantwell v. Connecticut explained, when a clear and present danger, the power of the state to prevent or punish is obvious. Citizens may use their expression in ways that can cause an uprising, therefore, the government may limit it.
Mark, is there any possibility we could ask her to
During
turn off her video?
1977, the offensive Skokie March was planned. However, as a
Benazia, we're having difficulty hearing you, and we think your video's cutting out. Can you just turn off your video and see if we can just pick you up with audio?
Okay, yeah, I'll try.
And judges, you okay with her like restarting? I'll restart the clock and everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try that and see if we can hear you without because you're cutting out a video and your video was freezing. When you're ready, go ahead.
Freedom of expression is not absolute. Restricting freedom of expression is dangerous because once moderated, the question of who regulates how far limiting can go and when it can be stopped are brought up. While freedom of expression allows for communication, there are times when it can be considered offensive or contradicting to someone else's right. In such a case, when and where the expression was shown must be considered, and from there, it can be decided whether or not to be restricted. Freedom of expression is a fundamental law. However, there are times when it should be limited. According to Schenck versus the U.S., when a nation is at war, things that might be said during time of peace will not be endured or protected. The nation's security is at a risk of breach during war. Therefore, to limit freedom of expression would be to protect the nation. Similarly, Cantwell v. Connecticut explained, when a clear and present danger of immediate threat to public safety appears, the power of the state to prevent or punish is obvious. Citizens may use their expression in ways that can cause an uprising, therefore the government may limit it. Yet during 1977, the offensive Skokie March was planned. However, as it occurred long after World War I, the Nazi March was not a clear and present danger. Moreover, Texas v. Johnson states, the government may not prohibit the expression of an idea simply because society finds the idea disagreeable. The Nazis, though highly unpopular, were U.S. citizens and therefore held this right to their freedom of expression too. While complex, freedom of expression still has limits.
The freedom of expression is absolutely essential in our society. Justice Brandeis wrote, although the rights to free speech and assembly are fundamental, their exercise is subject to restriction if the restriction is required to protect the state from destruction or serious injury. In the Tinker versus Des Moines case, 13-year-old Mary Beth Tinker and her brother John Tinker started a group that wore armbands to school in order to protest the Vietnam War. They were suspended and decided to take it to court. After a 4-year case, it was determined in Supreme Court that the armbands did not interrupt the educational process, and the First Amendment protected the right to wear them. Today, Martin Luther King Jr. is seen as a hero who fought for African Americans' fundamental rights. However, in his time, some polls showed that 75% of Americans disapproved of his message. Many were offended and alarmed by the message, and this eventually led to his assassination. Because of his work, we live in a more today. Even though alarming ideas can cause growth, not all of them should be tolerated. Ideas designed to incite violence, attack certain groups should not be tolerated. Despite some exceptions, the presentation of ideas that are designed to alarm or offend people cause our country to grow.
Social media sites are another place where the freedom of expression presented by others should be limited. This is because social media sites are private institutions, meaning they have the right to control what content is distributed on their website. One limitation should be enforced is to prohibit posts that incite violence or include fighting words. In the Supreme Court's decision in the New Hampshire in 1942, Justice Francis W. writes that frightening words, by their very utterance, inflict injury or tend to incite an immediate breach of peace. Another limit that should be put on social media sites is using racial or discriminatory slurs, phrases, or symbols. The use of such words or images is limited by profanity laws that have been put in place, such as disturbing the peace, as in California. Social media is the modern government, which in result should be limited based on the freedom of expression that the government grants every citizen. By rule of the Constitution, fighting words or obscene gestures is not within your First Amendment right protections. As Judge Bernard Decker wrote when discussing these limitations, it is a dangerous path to embark. Before freedom of expression is judged, time and circumstance must be put into thought first. Freedom of expression and limitations are not absolute.
Okay, thank you. I was interested in your reference to Martin Luther King in relation to alarming ideas. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes. So back, as we said, back in the times where he was still actively publicly speaking, many disapprove his message. In fact, up to 75% of people. And that was still when discrimination was very widely accepted around our country. And so clearly it was going to offend some people and alarm some people. But eventually that created an uprising for African Americans, and eventually led into the equal society we have today. And I think that he was eventually killed due to his message, because I don't think someone would really just go out and kill a famous person for no reason.
In addition to that, today it's very normalized that we don't have segregated schools, and he did a lot to change that, even though like back then that wasn't normalized at all.
So you talk about speech that people disapprove of, like Martin Luther King. What about false information, speech that contains false information? Should that receive the protections of the First Amendment? Why or why not?
I think that it depends on what the false information is about. If people are spreading fake news about like sports and ideas like that, obviously there's no actual consequence to a lie about those situations. However, one example would be earlier in this year, January 6th, that was based off the idea that the election was stolen and that it was fraud. And that eventually led to people rioting the Capitol and trying to cause harm on congressmen and women trying to carry through with the constitutional process of electing President Biden.
So you think sometimes false speech should be limited? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, if it's about,
Well, I find that in most scenarios, well, in most cases, false speech should not be allowed because things like defamation and fraud are not protected underneath the First Amendment right.
Should we expand it beyond just defamation and fraud?
if it's on a very
I didn't
Is
catch
he
that.
cutting out for you guys?
So let me throw out a possible different approach to this. What if I took the position that public protests led to a bunch of violent acts in the course of the summer, and then the fact that we let people say whatever they wanted to say about the election led to the insurrection on January 3rd. And therefore, I believe that news ought to come from a trusted source. And to me, that's the US government. What would you say to me?
If you were to say that, I would say that if all our news came directly from the government, then the whole purpose of a democracy with having the people voice their issues or with their concerns with the government wouldn't be heard. So the people should have that right to do that, even though it could lead to further complications. The original protesting, if it is peaceful, is not the direct cause of that and all the violence that afterwards.
Additionally, the Supreme Court case, Dijon versus Origin, had ruled that so long as a protest is peaceful, it is constitutional, as many people in the protests that were happening over in Origin, as Dijon had been sued by Origin for having a protest, and it had been brought up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had not convicted Dijon.
Could you all define hate speech for me?
Hate speech is a form of speech wherein a citizen will either like openly discriminate against a different race or to like put someone or to put someone else down, like, and hate speech is constitutionally allowed and protected underneath the First Amendment right, as Brandenburg v. Ohio had ruled.
Okay.
Does freedom of expression contribute to good government? Explain your answer.
Freedom of expression does contribute to good government, because when freedom of expression is allowed to be spread, it gives communication for the citizens, and it allows people to share how they feel about how the government is working. Because as New York Times Company versus Sullivan had ruled, the public and the press are unable to criticize public officials on how they are ruling the government, which enables the citizens to share their views and to correct what they might feel is incorrect with how the government is dealing with an item or a subject.
In your statements, you emphasized that a part of the reason that the Skokie March should have been allowed was that the Nazis, as abhorrent as their message might have been, were citizens also. Would non-citizens have the right, for instance, to publicly protest against immigration policy of the US if they wanted to stage a march, say in El Paso? Would they have the right to do that, and should they?
Well, I don't think they should have the right to do that, as since they're not a citizen, what applies to citizens of the United States would not apply to them.
Okay. All right. Anyone else agree or disagree? Okay, thanks.
This is
Well-
Mr. Browning here. We've lost Isaiah. He's lost his connection, just to let you know.
Oh, okay. And I've got two of Emma.
That's
Yeah,
right.
one of them's frozen.
Am I connected on two devices?
No problem.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
Well,
Okay, we're out of time.
Yep,
Okay,
thank you. Technology sometimes gets away with us, doesn't it? But thank you all so much for trying. Rebecca, do you want to start?
Sure. Good job, and way to keep rolling with the flow as we're having our technology difficulties. I know we restarted a number of times, and I am so sorry that you had to keep doing that, and welcome back. To those of you who are able to get back on, we appreciate that. We don't hold that against you. Just know that we don't hold any of that technology stuff against you. I appreciated your 4-minute prepared remarks where you talked about historical things and some more recent things in your prepared remarks. You brought in Shank, which we expected, and also Tinker and Martin Luther King. Those were all good examples. And then in the question and answer, I appreciated that you were applying these principles to the January 6th events that unfolded. And we're applying things to hate speech, and really we could see the struggle which all of us have in deciding where to draw lines of what should be protected, what should not be protected, and how to go about doing that analysis. And I appreciate each of you dealing with that and the work that you've put in along with your teacher. You're to be commended.
Lindsay?
So I'm going to talk to you in a moment about the content, but I really do need to start with a discussion about poise. That one of the things that you have no way of anticipating is when you're going to have these technological struggles. And as my colleague just mentioned, asking you to start over multiple times, knowing that your teammates were trying to talk, and because you could hear the same thing we heard, and for you all to keep saying, no, we're going to get this done, we're going to talk to you. I have to give you an incredible amount of credit for that you did it with a poise that I don't know a whole lot of adults could have handled. So I need to start by talking about that. The content pieces, I appreciated the case references because you touched on the stuff that I wanted to hear about. You know, and I'm kind of glad you mentioned that we have this example of during the 1960s, Martin Luther King was preaching and doing stuff that really a whole bunch of people are going, you are disrupting life and we're not happy with what you're doing. And a lot of people were saying, this is not good trouble. This is just trouble. And you recognize that we look back now and we go, American hero. And at the time, there were a whole bunch of people going, stop him. So it's important to recognize that if certain voices aren't heard, we might miss some messages that are really critical. So I thought that was an excellent point that you made, and I'm really glad you did that. Good job. And again, I have to tip my hat to you because you handled a very difficult situation really well.
Rebecca?
I've already given my feedback.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's getting a little late in the day. That you did. I thought that was a lovely job, and I agree wholeheartedly with how well you handled the technological issues. I also really liked your comment about lying about sports is okay, but lying about the election is not. And I thought that was a really interesting comparison. That was helpful. And false speech is okay, except when it's defamation or fraud, was an interesting line to draw. I also very much appreciated you bringing up New York Times versus Sullivan, which is certainly a big case. And thank you. I think you did a really superb job. And I hope you've enjoyed doing this and hope you've enjoyed studying these issues because they'll stand you in good stead the rest of your lives. I know you'll be good voters and citizens, and I hope you'll influence those around you to learn what's going on in the government and go out and vote themselves. But I hope you might also think about going into politics yourselves, because we certainly need people who are as well educated as you are about what the government is supposed to be doing. And I have to say that you did as well as many of my law school classmates would have done their freshman year in law school. So thank you. You did a really superb job, and I hope you've had fun doing it because we sure have had fun listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, team. Thanks for your patience with the technology. Good luck, and we will see you tomorrow.